but I haven't done too much with muting.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be good to start talking about that, about muting. Muting's good. You use that so that the stuff just doesn't ring out forever.
Right.
Like a guy on a piano using those pedals. You know how they're like a piano. You
Right.
let up on the keys, it stops, and if you hold the pedal down, it stays.
Right.
And then you pull the pedal up, I guess, when you want to mute it. So it's the same idea, so that you have more control of the strings, and you can instead of, like, it allows you to do the real choppy kind of rhythm stuff, where you can be percussive with it, and it doesn't have to just ring like that's when it's ringing out. And then you do the most basic kind of muting is left hand muting, where you just slightly lift your fingers up off the fretboard, and you can play some chords like I'll play. I won't mute it all with my right hand. Now when you play lead, it's very difficult to mute with your left hand, because you're trying to do the fingering at the same time, unless you're super fast or something. So you're mostly doing the left hand muting, which is the easy kind of muting to do. It's usually what you learn first. Doing that to try to keep your rhythm in control, and so it's not just ringing away. It's easy to do when you're playing bar chords, where you're fingering all the strings at once, because you can just lift up off them. When you have these kind of chords where you're just playing, you're not necessarily playing all of the strings like this. You can hear that I can mute the inner string, but I can't mute this string because I'm not holding onto it. So it sits there and it rings a little bit. So that becomes an issue. And again, when I'm doing... See, I can just kind of mute it by, chopping at it and then letting up on the strings. And again, that allows you to do, to play real tight sounding stuff, especially the rhythm, because you're just not letting the thing just go completely ring and keep ringing forever. So that's something to work on. And excuse me, probably some of the best drills you can do is just not necessarily trying to play something, but just doing this kind of stuff. See how I'm coming back up with the thing muted like that? So it gives you a little choppy kind of shuffle, percussive kind of shuffle thing. And that allows you, the one thing that's really cool that you can do when you're playing guitar is to do this percussive stuff.
Right.
Because it replaces the, it's like tapping your foot, like those guys that use those cigar boxes things. They get a little bit of a percussive line going, and it adds a lot to your playing. So good drills to do is just this kind of stuff. Working with getting your fingering to be nice and tight, the way you mute and unmute. So you can practice a lot of that stuff. Again, I'm not using my right hand to mute it all. I'm just trying to do it all left hand muting, so you can see, what you can do. So, and I found myself muting a little bit with my right hand there, but so that's a good thing to practice. That's the most basic kind of muting that you'll you're going to do, and it's going to become intuitive sooner or later, so that you're going to be doing it all the time. Like B.B. King says that he wants to be in total control of every string at all times. So, and what he says is he's always either muting it or playing or bending it or doing these little pull-offs and stuff like that, but he always wants to be in control of every string at every time. I guess that makes sense. When you get to be really good, you'd be in control of everything all the time. But the idea is that don't just let these strings just, you know, like when you first learn to play guitar, you're strumming and you're hoping that all the strings sound the right way. Well, when you get to be really good, you're in control of every string. You know, whether you're muting, he's using the left hand muting, he's using right hand muting, he's using his fingers to mute things. And that's part of it, is muting is part of being in control of the guitar. You know, and that's how when you get really good, you can just, you know, you make a lot of different kind of sounds. Some of the little, like, you know, when you hear real good guitar players, like if you're an average guitar player, you play like. When you're a good guitar player, every note has got a little. And a lot of see what you're gonna find. We're gonna talk about is using the pick and your fingers to mute. And what you'll find is as you get more advanced, what you're going to do is you're going to do these little, the way that you pick at it also will help control. And we'll get into that in a second. But one thing to work and practice on is just this stuff. Take all the chords you know and just do them like this. Run up and down the fretboard, or if you like to just, if you have some little tunes you like to play with little jazzy tunes with certain chord progressions and stuff like that, just practice doing that choppy rhythm with your, you know, with the left hand muting by just letting off, and it'll become second nature after a while. And so instead of your strumming going right on top of each other, like this is strumming for a second and then a microsecond later you're strumming back up, so there's really no open spaces in there. Now you can control how long the rests are, you know, not just how you're playing, but you're gonna, you know, like the real advanced playing involves, you know, playing a very exact time in a very exact way. So the whole idea is to really have good control of the strings. The other kind of muting that you, the next kind of muting that you learn is how to use your palm, your right palm, to do muting. And I'll try to keep the strings not mute with my left hand and just mute with my palm. It's not so easy to control your palm, and it's also something that was more for me when I learned it. It just I didn't try learning it; it just became second nature. You know, I didn't put a lot of effort into learning it. Just after a long time, I realized that I was doing that. You know, I kind of rest my palm on here a lot when I'm playing rhythm, and just pick it up and just pick it up. You get to see how when I go to strum, it kind of comes up off there and then it goes right back down. And you know, I don't know some magical way to teach that other than to make you aware of it and then just let you know that it'll become part of your repertoire of controlling the strings. And probably like the way it is with me, I mostly use the left hand muting, but I'm also using my right hand some, and by hook or by crook, some way they seem to work together. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is the right hand muting, I'm not so awful sure of how to teach that. but it's something you need to be aware of. And how you use your right hand muting will depend on how the geometry of how you strum. Like if it's easy for you to keep your hand down here and maybe close to the bridge and you can slide it up onto the string. See, I tend to kind of keep it on this, resting on the biggest string, which is okay because when I go to play the big string, I just pick it up off, and I could kind of rock it down like this to mute it. And at this point, I don't have enough insights in how to teach it to give you a good way to learn it, other than just to be aware of it and mess around with it. So you can do that kind of thing. And it will become part of your repertoire. Like you see, I'm just doing it. I'm not really thinking about it much, other than I'm trying to not mute with my left hand. So you can work on exercises with just using your right hand and don't mute with your left hand. It's good to do those exercises because it increases your awareness of what you're doing. And you can hear that the muting is not as crisp as when I do it this way. I'm trying to do it good, but it's just harder. So, it may not be so effective right away for you to do that. But that's the other kind of muting that you can do. And muting is something that you're not going to be thinking about while you're playing. It's something you're going to have to develop just into when you become fluent. You're just going to do it because you can't think about muting and think about the other stuff. It's just too complicated. So, it's just something you have to start to be aware of. Start to do it to tighten up the sound, and you'll be able to tell the difference because things will be tighter, and you'll be able to separate each note out a little bit. And then it would be, after you just play for a long time, be aware of it. It'll become part of what you do. It's not something you can work on like a scale. It's not something that's real structured. So that's the right hand palm muting. You get your left hand going like this, the right hand bouncing up and down off of the strings, or kind of muting it like like the things on the piano keys. You look at a grand piano and they got those little muting things are coming down. Yeah, it's just, it's the same thing. And then the other kind of muting involves using your pick. And it's something that's second nature once you get good at it. But basically what you're doing is you're doing this. You're starting by, and you'll see that all the good guitar players do this. When they pick at something, they don't go at it like that. They'll put their pick on the string and then go like that. And then they may put the pick down and mute it. But they're muting before they pick it by just feeling. And what it is, the reason they do it that way, and this is the way that I play, is because it's a feel thing. You feel the string and then you pick at it. And it's part of having a good control of how hard you're picking. Is that you feel that string there, and the way I do it is I kind of, when I'm getting ready to down pick, I'll put this, see this index finger is down near the tip of the pick, and that's part of trying to get yourself worked down to the tip there, is that I'll use my index finger, I'm kind of touching the string, and at the same time I'm putting that pick against it too. So it's muted, and then I pick it like that. And all good guitar players do that. It's part of controlling the string. And you'll be using that to mute your leads rather than like that, because you're picking and then you pick and you go right back and touch the string and stop it.
Do you do that on a bend?
Well, you may not mute it to stop it. I mean, you could do that. See what I'm doing? I'm muting it before I play, and then I pick it, and then I mute it after I play. Just by touching my finger to it, and I'm in the same place that I'm in right when I go to start picking. I put that pick there, I'm touching it with my finger a little bit. That gives me a feel for how deep it's penetrating, and I'm muting. I'm muting because the last note I played is to, would be still ring. It's like, and then I go, I play the note and mute when I want to stop. Like that. So I'm using, and I'm not always picking down. Sometimes I'm picking up. But basically what I'm doing is putting the pick there to mute the string. Keep it muted, then hit the note, stop it when I want to stop it, hit it again. But by using the pick, whether you're picking down, you don't have to touch it with your finger. You just put the pick or up. And if you're playing, so when you're playing any old lead, as long as it's not so fast of a thing you're doing, so that you can do this, you'll start to do that. So there's a lot of muting going on there, even though I'm just doing. You see, if I just, that's letting everything ring, and here's. That's muting it with the pick by just putting the pick back on the string when I want it to stop. And some of to make your lead work sound really good, sometimes you have to play like funky stuff that's off the beat a little bit. Like how guys are really and that, to do that, you have to have that control of that string, so that people can hear that offbeat note that you're playing. So that's the way that you're going to mute your lead playing. And that one rings out. So you want to be able to have, a choppy note that's just an eighth note or something, or when you want to make a whole note, you let it ring out. Like that. So that's one thing you want to start thinking about, is how do you kind of keep that pick on the strings, and and use it to mute when you want, leave it off when you want it to ring, and I don't know, I guess good drills to do would just be working on your leads, right. Trying to make them real like loud and choppy, kind of, to get that muting going. So again, when you're doing leads, that's the way you're gonna mute it, is to keep that keep that pick right against the strings, and only take it off when you're gonna let the note ring. Like the piano, where all of those felt things are always down, except when you hit a key, it comes up. Same thing. You want to basically be kind of muted all the time, and you'll be aware of that as you get better anyway. Because you kind of keep your hand on, on here when you don't want it to ring out. Now, especially you become especially sensitive to that with playing electric guitar. Right. You always have to you always have to mute the strings. Well, always. See, when you're standing there, you have to go like this, and then, when you're playing, you have to mute it one way or another. Otherwise, it'll all ring out, and it'll all just sound all jumbled together. So that's the basics of muting. Again, you got your left hand stuff. And then you get your right hand muting, which is harder to do, but really I think that the way I do it is I mostly do left hand muting, but I do a little bit of right hand muting on top of it. It's not something, like I said, it's not something that I learned by drilling myself. It's something I learned just by trial and error, and then one day I noticed, oh, I'm muting. So, and then the right hand muting, you can hear it's not so precise as the left. It's harder to do, I guess. I can't keep my left hand from muting. And then your the pick buting, you're not going to do when you're playing chords. Right. You just see, I can do that while I'm doing this stuff. I can mute with the pick, and you see how it sounds sharper. It's not all. So you can use a little bit when you're kind of doing little frilly stuff, but it's, you can't, when you're strumming a whole chord, it's just not gonna, it's not gonna really work. When you're trying to, I don't know, like when you're trying to rake, you can kind of, when you're doing a rake, which is like when you do a lead, and you do like, or like this. A rake is when you rake your thing your hand across there and then play a note at the end of it. But the most for a lead, what you're really going to have to do is to learn how to mute with the pick, so that when you're picking the notes, you pick it, and then you're aware of how long you want to hold it, and then you put the pick back down on it. And I don't know how you. I think the only way you can learn it is just to be aware of it and employ it when you're just playing your tunes, your easier tunes that you like to play. Just start being aware of that and start to incorporate it into your playing. First doing with your rhythm. And I wouldn't worry too much about the right hand I wouldn't worry about trying to get to the point where you can do right hand muting real good. I would just let that come as it goes. I drill yourself on this. That's important. And then drill yourself on the pick muting, because that, like I said, that all of the muting is going to become a big part, an integral part of your playing. So there's no way around it. You're just going to have to be aware of it, incorporate it into your playing, and then sooner or later, as most of the time you're going to be working on fingerings and learning new stuff, but it's something that's one of the physical aspects of playing that you need to incorporate into your playing.
One of the things that I was wanting to ask you is there a rule for whether you're going to pick down or up? Because when I was learning this, I had to watch the guy who showed it on the internet, showed the finger.
Right.
Which was good. I mean, he showed the picking of the right hand.
Uh-huh.
So, until you got that, until you got that, it didn't go smoothly.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not picking in the right direction at the right time, you can't make the
the
transition
other
to the next string,
Right.
right? There is no rule about that, and it just becomes intuitive, or not intuitive. Becomes part of your fluency of playing. And when I'm picking, I have no idea whether I'm picking up or down.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
have
not
the
aware.
slightest
Right.
idea, really. Right.
Because
So,
you know, the next thing I tried to do was, it was another lead that I was trying, and it was a little bit more complicated, but he started off and until I figured out after looking at it 20 times what he was doing, it wasn't going smoothly.
Well, and I guess what you're saying is, it's one thing you figure the fingering out, but then do you have to figure anything out about the
because
pick?
when he's showing it, when he's playing it, he's playing the first note up. But when he's showing it, he's saying, okay, the first thing you do is you get on the 5th fret.
Oh, when he plays it down, I see.
And then,
But when he puts it all together, he's picking a certain
picking it
right.
differently, and
Yeah, see, that's something that there is no rule,
Okay.
and it's definitely just part of being fluent.
Right.
And the way I learned it, I'm sure I thought about it at some point, but I don't think about it at all.
Well, not now.
Yeah, somehow it's just become part of being
Right.
fluent. There is definitely no rule, and the way you do the picking, like you're saying, if you start a certain way, it makes it easier because you don't have to, you don't have to either jump straight. See, when you pick down, it's tougher to get back to this string. So, I don't know what to say about that, other than just keep drilling yourself.
Was it a downbeat?
No, no rule
No rule.
at all about that. You may find yourself picking down on the downbeat more if it doesn't make any difference. But what you're going to find is that somehow, because of the repetition of these licks, that you're going to ingrain the picking pattern into your brain along with the lick. I think that's what's going to happen. And now that I think about it, when I do have typical licks in my repertoire, I think I've learned the picking patterns along with those when I learned them. And now that I think about it, I don't ever think about which I'm picking.
Not.
Other than I do try to be right hand aware, but aware that I'm working my right hand, but I don't. And I think mostly, I probably do play on the downbeat mostly. But there's certain licks, and like if you're skipping over string, going from this one to this one, you have to go. So you see if I guess I can do that. But now there's no rule, and there's nothing to worry about. You just have to drill yourself, and you'll try some lick, it won't work, and you'll figure out like you did that you had to pick whatever you had to do, and that'll just become second nature.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about that, about trying to make some rule or try to follow some pattern or something.
Okay. Well, good. Good stuff to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good bunch of stuff to start to be aware of. And like I said, it's not something you can drill yourself on the basics of muting, but it's something that you can also just start employing in your playing. So it's not something you really have to drill a lot. It's something you can just have fun playing your tunes and think about that a little bit. And you will, once you get good at it, be good, because that's when you're really going to start to sound good. When you, like I said, you want control of all of those strings, and at all times, and that's what makes you really sound real good, real tight, is to to have that, especially with the rhythm stuff. I mean, I know there's certain rhythms that I play very percussive kind of stuff, and it's all percussive almost. I mean, just like a lot of the rhythm stuff that I play with the band there, it's all just choppy. you know, it sounds real tight. You know, it makes it sound real tight. And it's not really a musical thing so much as, or like a tonal thing so much as a percussive thing. You know, you can have that chord going, and it's musical or tonal and percussive. You can play like that and sound great. You can play like that and sounds great. And you can play with both and it sounds double great. You know. And that's how all of the funky guys and the jazz guys, you know, the real tight bands, those guys are real funky like they had back in the 70s and stuff. That's how those guys played all of that stuff. Real tight work and everything all muted all the time. Well, that's really something that, you know, once you get a handle on that, then you're really going to sound good. And your licks and stuff that you're learning are good. I mean, your dexterity's getting better.
Well, I could feel it a little bit better. That it's nice when it slows down and it works.
Yeah, so that you can start to
See, I
play
never
a
did
tune.
That before. I never did that before.
Yeah, it gets, in the beginning it's choppy and you can't incorporate your riffs into a tune and you can't really play, but you get to a certain point where you can play a few chords, keep your tempo, and play some riffs, and then play those chords, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I can really do something here. It sounds like a real tune.
Right. As long as I'm able to entertain myself.
Yeah, you know, that's what it's all about, is having fun. I mean, once you get good, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point where I'm good enough on my acoustic here, so I'm going to start to go over there and do some solo stuff over there at the acoustic coffee.
Oh, really? Cool.
Because I can play all of my blues tunes, kind of just acoustified versions of them.
And